So I think what motivated me to go into engineering was that I thought it had a lot more sizable social impact on certain issues such as climate change and general environmental issues. So that was one of my major motivations. And I think what really attracted me to UBC engineering was that it had a lot more focus on sustainability focused research as opposed to other universities that I was applying to. And I think another factor was that it allowed you to enter into a general program instead of going straight into your specialization, especially since a lot of students don't exactly know which specialization best fits their interests. So I think that by UBC having that type of general first year program to really help you identify what types of specialization would work best for you, I think that those were the main reasons that attracted me to UBC.
So what attracted me to engineering first was I was a carpenter prior to coming to school, and I fell in love with building science, and I just wanted to learn more about it. And so I came back and took the plunge back into engineering and coming back to school. And then what attracted me to UBCO was actually I wanted to work in you at I wanted to work in the Okanagan, and I know that the professors here are just really well connected with the industry, and so it presents a really great networking opportunity when you meet professors and they have friends and colleagues in industry who they connect you with when you build relationships at the school. And so I just saw it as a good place to start my career here in the Okanagan.
Has your experience so far at UBC met the expectations that you had coming in? And what has been your most memorable experience as a UBC student, specifically as an engineering student? And maybe I'll go back to Martin to start us off with that one.
Yes, sure thing. So I think that in terms of my expectations, in terms of challenging myself as a person and discovering what type of capabilities like I can aspire to in terms of being an engineering student, I think UBC has definitely satisfied that bar for me, especially with making a lot of connections. I think that's also been a super thing that like I've been able to do as part of my expectations at UBC. I think in terms of most memorable. Definitely Jumpstart. I remember the most positive things from that start, especially since I was able to network with a lot of people that were going to be in my engineering program and make a lot of connections that way that I still have to this day. That was definitely one of my most memorable instances, especially since I got joined so many events and look into so many clubs right before school started. So I definitely recommend for anyone who is looking into Jumpstart to join that as well.
Thanks so much, Martin. And I'm so happy that you talked about Jumpstart because it's such a great orientation for students to join. So pass it over to you, Grant, for the UBC Okanagan experience.
All right. Yeah. So my expectations have certainly been met. You know, I was expecting a very challenging and rewarding experience, and it has certainly been that. You know, I've met some lifelong friends here, and just the people that you meet in engineering are all just filled with passion. And that's something I really noticed as a transition from trades to school here. You know, everyone is here because they really want to be, and it's just a really refreshing thing. In terms of my most memorable experiences here, I would say it's probably been in my research experience. I volunteered for Dr. Tober's lab in her structures lab, and we got to test some concrete samples that I helped build. And so I've really had quite a full experience here at UBCO.
That's great. It's very cool that you came from carpentry and then you're able to go work in a research lab again in that civil experience to get that full circle. So that's amazing that those opportunities have been presented to you. That's so great. So I'm going to move on to our next question here. So a lot of the students who are here today may be moving away from their family to join another family that they make on campus. So another essential aspect of the student experience is finding that sense of community on campus. So with that in mind, I really want to focus shift our focus over to how to find your community on campus. So I would want to start with maybe Grant, since you were just sharing. Maybe if you can expand a little bit more to share about how you found, um, I guess, your community on campus, and have you found the UBC community to be a diverse community?
Absolutely. Of those people that are my lifelong friends, many of them come from different parts of the world. And I've experienced a lot, being just a local in the Okanagan. My world was quite small prior to coming to UBCO. But then after coming here, I've met lots of people from around the world. And I just feel very privileged for being able to have this experience here. Um, in terms of finding your community here, I think that the university experience is one of those things, like, you get out what you put into it. And we as engineers can often sometimes be introverted, and having those interpersonal skills are so important for your future career. And so, like, putting yourself out there and meeting new people, talking to your professors, talking to the people you sit beside, is all super important for your experience as a whole, and then also for your future in terms of, like, working on those interpersonal skills. So yeah, that's been my experience.
That's great. Thank you so much, Grant. I'm going to pass it over to John V now to share.
Thanks, Marie. And similar to lines to what Grant said, that putting yourself out there, I think that's really important. I moved here around 3 years ago from India all alone, and I know that it's a little intense, but I'm really glad that I found my people here. And it was mostly through joining clubs. I joined Bhangra Club, Gidda, that's like my community, but the Punjabi community. So it's like really nice to have people who are from home around you, but then also a lot of the people that I call my best friends are not Punjabi people, and I love them. And that was mostly because of my classes, or like just saying hi. If I'm sitting next to you in class, I think that's just really important. And I'm happy that I've chose UBC because it is very diverse, and I'm happy here.
That's so great. I can just tell so much from how you guys are answering that you really enjoy your experience on campus and that you've really found such a strong community. So it's really nice to hear that at both campuses that there's lots of opportunities for you to find your space. So I know that Martin already sort of alluded to this and mentioned it a bit, but we do have a lot of great orientations on both of our campuses, such as Jumpstart or our Imagine, which is at UBC Vancouver campus, or Create Day at the UBC Okanagan campus. So there is lots of information that students can find about this. And that's going to be released a lot to our prospective or applicants who have accepted their offers around July or August. So make sure you're watching your emails for that. Sort of along those lines, a lot of times during these orientations, students get to talk with people who have joined design teams or clubs, which I know bring a lot of extras into your degree. So we wanted to talk about where if there's any clubs, organizations, or extracurricular activities that helped you find a sense of community within the engineering program. So I'm going to pass that over to Martin.
Yes, sure thing. So I think that one of the things that I found to make a lot of friends in my department was joining our departmental council club. And in that role as a student representative, I've been able to connect with a lot of my peers. So that's been super fun. I also joined a research club called Engineers for a Sustainable World. And we were able to connect with clients in the sustainability program, which also helped me find a lot more connections as well. I think especially in regards to the council program, I was able to find a lot of friends by people randomly come up to me and ask me to do things in my certain position that were related to my responsibilities, and then we'd eventually form a friendship there, or going to a lot of events as part of being in my role, which also helped a lot with meeting people that I never thought I would talk to in my department. So those have been a few of the ways that I found a really expansive community here at UBC.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I also want to open this question up to all panelists. If any of you want to add anything from your experience, if you've joined any clubs, organizations, or any other fun things that you've done that helped you with your sense of community, feel free to just take a turn and share.
I can go next. So I have been a part of Canadian Society for Civil Engineering Students for 2 years after my second year. And I think part of that club is basically just organizing networking events, lunch and learns, meeting with industry people. And I think as an engineering student, it's really important to just learn from people who have been in the industry for a while, and just talking to them and kind of deciding on what path you want to get into. I think it's really important. And I've had a chance to do that with a lot of networking events, speed networking and industry night. I think that's really cool. And I'm happy that I get to be a part of CSE.
That's great. Grant or Ellie, did you want to share anything?
Yeah, sure. I actually think volunteering and like something related to engineering events is also a way to find like feeling of belonging in the engineering community. And by just like volunteer, like sharing my personal experiences to students that are actually coming into engineering or getting into like upper levels, I'll be able to share my experiences, like my tips, some of the advices I could give them. Yeah, so it's like really interesting and also get to know more about myself too.
That's amazing. Thanks for bringing that up, because it is one thing that a lot of it's not really spoken about as like a prospective student. Is all the awesome opportunities you have, like what you guys are doing right now, where you can come here and share your experiences and all your great advice and tips that really can help prospective students and applicants have a successful and smooth transition coming into our programs. So thanks for sharing that. And I do know that a few of you have possibly been involved in research, Grant, like you've said, and possibly coordinated international experience. So I don't know if you would like to share maybe a little bit more about research, maybe how you decided to get involved in that and how that maybe has helped throughout your degree. Um, Maybe I'll start with Ellie, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. I actually have several research experiences throughout my whole undergraduate studies, and the first official research assistant job that I actually got was in my third year, and I was working with another students from the Faculty of Science, and our topic was about like in simple words, it was about seeing how microplastics could affect the human brain. So I'll say that in overall, that was really fun, but a little bit overwhelming because I had to manage to work like 10 hours in a week and also like in the lab and also taking 6 courses in the same semester. So, but I've gained some really good like time management skills. And actually, I didn't even know like I could do so much stuff in a day until this came. So in general, this program, working with another students from another faculty was a really different situation when we have like really different mindsets, perspectives, but at the same time, we can exchange our ways of thinking and then we combine our best ideas together. And it was really nice to be able to achieve something, like some results out of all the work we've done. And that was the best moment out of the whole entire year. And because of this research experience, I actually asked the professor who was in charge of that program to ask her to if I could continue working the project with her in the following summer. Yeah, so I think it's a really good experience if you could find professors to work with.
Thanks so much for sharing, Ellie. I appreciate you sharing too, like how you're finding that experience and how this has helped you. So really appreciate that insight. I know, Grant, I know you talked about your research. Do you have a little bit more that you wanted to share as well?
I'm always interested in sharing the research stuff. So yeah. So the research group I work with is Asset Research Group. It's led by Dr. Tober. Dr. Lisa Tober is an amazing professor. If you go into civil engineering, she will be or she might be your theories of structures professor. I highly recommend talking to her. She's a great mentor. My research first began by helping in the laboratory building test samples. So we built concrete columns essentially, and we are cyclically tensioning and compressing them to see the seismic performance of the concrete connections in precast concrete walls. Now that's a lot. I'm throwing a lot at you, but really it's all civil engineering seismic testing. And yeah, it's been a great experience. So I started there, and then I've transitioned this year into doing more of a design side of things. And so I've been able to help design a steel cage for the testing apparatus. And that's been a really amazing experience as well, really getting kind of, I guess, your hands dirty in the calculations. It's been a really great experience overall. And two, like I say, I'm sure a lot of the high school students and people going into engineering are very career oriented. So all of you are looking forward into like, what can I do to help my career in the future? And volunteering in a research lab and possibly it turning into a paid position, it can be huge for your future career because, like I said before, the connections that you make, a lot of it is based around networking, and getting to know these people and building good relationships will really go a long way in helping you get a future career. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm gonna take over from now, and next I want to move into living on campus. So UBC really does have a great campus both at Vancouver and Okanagan, and I know a lot of students are curious whether living arrangement impacts your ability to connect with other students. I would say both on campus and on campus have both pros and cons. So first, Jambi, I want to ask, how was your experience living on campus? Would you recommend it to others? And if so, why?
Thanks, Deb. So I moved here and I lived on campus for my first year in place dining residence. And I highly recommend it because one of my best friends was my first roommate that I ever lived with outside of my home. And I think that was really cool because I made a lot of friends on my floor, in my in the whole area. And it was really cool because I had food right on the corner and I didn't have to cook for the first year, which is really good when you're just settling into the engineering grind, and it's really fun. I think I would recommend living on campus definitely for the first year, I think.
Sure. I think it's going to be a new experience for a lot of students where you have to live separately apart from your family. So I also want to hear from Martin. How was your experience?
I found it to be a very exciting experience. I think on living on campus has so many benefits. It definitely like shortens the amount of time like you have to go to class. It'll be at like a maximum probably like a 10-minute walk to go to class, depending on where the class is. And I think it allows you to join a lot more on-campus events a lot more easily, especially like if you're living on-campus residence. I lived in Totem Park in first year in a shared room, and I also had a roommate that was super nice, and I really enjoyed staying with him. And I also really enjoyed my floor mates as well. We found a lot in common, and we hosted events together. So that was really exciting. So I think there's definitely like a lot more benefits, especially since it's a lot easier to make friends when you live on campus, and it's a lot easier to find connections and explore more of your interests when you're on campus.
Great. Thanks, Martin. Of course, now it's time for hear from other side of the students. So let's hear about experience as a commuter student. So Ellie, what was that experience like? Would you recommend living off campus?
I think my answers could have some biases because I have never lived on campus before. But I'll definitely recommend living off campus. The reason is because you get more flexibility onto like in choosing the living environment. And I think it was my second year. I lived with my friends, and we rent a apartment, and then we had so much time doing other things together, like going to the grocery stores and then like study together, watch movie together. And I think leave the place that we rent, it's really close by McDonald's, like DQ, KFC. It's really nice and really convenient. But I guess the only downside about this is the transportation aspect. And sometimes this may discourage students from going to the campus if it's too far. Yeah.
I live 15 minutes from campus, which is a long time, but I enjoy living off campus and far because I live with my sisters and I live around the city, so it's like I can do both. I can move around campus and just look around the city, which is interesting, and it's good. It's pretty. And I think yeah, uh, I would definitely recommend off campus if it's something that you guys want.
Great, thanks. So my next question is to Grant. as a commuter student, can you share how you stay connected to the campus experience even though you're not living on campus?
Yes, I can. So I think that this kind of stems back to what I was saying previously, in the sense that by living off campus, it can certainly be more difficult to find friends just due to proximity. You're not around all these people all the time. You don't live with them, but I think that it encourages you to put yourself out there a little bit more. It's kind of funny when I've heard stories from some friends who do live on campus that they might live on campus, but they still feel it like there's just that last step to putting yourself out there, where living off campus can certainly encourage that last step because you're not always with these people. But yeah, I've had a great experience living off campus. It comes down to, when you're here, make sure that you sit beside people, talk to them in class, ask questions to your professors. I think that it's so important to find your community here at UBC. If you choose to come to here, finding a community here, it'll make your experience 10 times better.
So one of the things that I looked when I was looking for off-campus housing was definitely doing my whole research of the areas around regarding safety, grocery stores, and how far I want to live from campus, off campus. But considering all the things that you want to live with your friends, I think it's a lot of things that you have to decide on. But some things, it's Facebook Marketplace really helped me if you have to live off campus. And just considering if you don't have to give money to anybody who's asking you without showing you the place, that was something that a lot of students suffer from. And I think, yeah, it's really important to know before you get into it. Yeah, I think that's something that I looked into before just finding a place off campus.
Thank you. Ellie, do you want to add on to Jambi's answer?
I think she pretty much just all the important advices in terms of finding off-campus places. But I would like to share one of my really frustrating personal experiences, because when I was looking for housing on Facebook Marketplace last year, there was one apartment that price and location were like really good, really appealing. So we actually paid the deposit without really seeing the house, and then it turns out it was like a scam, and they just took our deposit $1,000 away. And then yeah, that's the most important point in terms of finding a place off campus, that always remember to view the place in person or online before signing anything or paying anything.
Thank you, Ellie. So before moving on to the next questions, I want to remind everyone who is watching this that you can always ask the question in the Q&A, and we will be happy to answer those. So next topic we're going to discuss, and I want to ask, because I know UBC engineering is really rigorous program, and as a first year or someone who is first entering to UBC, it might be hard to adjust to those workload. So what was the transition from high school class to university course like for you? What resources did you use to manage your course load? Grant, do you want to share some?
Yeah, for sure. For me, the really helpful thing at UBCO was the engineering advising team. They were so helpful for me because I had been out of high school for approximately 7 years before coming back. So I was, to say the least, a little rusty. But they were so helpful in the fact that they would work with me in adjusting my courses if I needed to, like if I needed a lighter course load, or and we could shift things around. And it was just a really great experience. And they just at the same time too just encouraged me and really gave me the confidence to kind of take on the full 6 course load or 6 courses. And so and it's proved to be great advice. So definitely, when you get to school, don't be afraid to reach out to the UBC engineering advising team, because they're worth their weight in gold.
Great. That's good to hear. Martin, do you also want to add some point?
Sure thing. I think from coming from doing high school classes at a regular level, so I wasn't like in AP or IB, so didn't have any transfer credits, I think it was an incredibly huge jump because I was taking 3 to 4 classes to taking 7 classes in my first term and then 6 in the second. But I think what really helped me adjust was making those connections. Because, say, for example, you're stuck on something and like you don't know how to answer the question, your friend might think of something different, of a different approach, and then like they can help you out with that. So I think the connections are also like a huge part of making engineering a lot more manageable, especially considering that in a lot of instances you'll be doing a lot of teamwork. So you'll be working on a lot of group projects, for instance. So I think that part really helps. And I think YouTube also helps a lot. A lot of first year content is very general and very applicable to many other universities. So if you're stuck on a topic, try to search out specific key terms that will help you identify what concept you need to brush up on, or what concept you didn't really understand during the lectures. And office hours as well helps a lot. I especially found it with my physics class, for instance, and I found that really helped a lot with understanding a lot of the content on homework assignments.
Great. Thanks, Martin. I also hear a lot of like you suffer together and you really become a good friend together in UBC engineering. So you definitely have such community that you can suffer and also help each other, which is also a really good thing about UBC engineering. And now, and Grant, how were your first year courses structured at UBC? Do you think you have enough resources to interact with instructors, TAs, given the class size?
Yes, definitely. So you might be in a large lecture hall for your first year classes, but this is reduced in your tutorials and your labs. And so it gives you lots of opportunity in a smaller setting to actually interact with your TAs and sometimes your professors as well. Your professors, as Martin mentioned, have office hours, and so they're really helpful for as well. And I think that something else that's worth mentioning is that a lot of the time, professors might be aloof, but I've personally never experienced that at UBCO. I really enjoy the professors and the TAs. They're really passionate and they care about your learning, and they want you to succeed. So when you go to the office hours, they will really work with you and try to help you to understand. So I highly recommend the office hours and going to your tutorials.
Great, thanks. Ellie, how was your experience?
My opinion is kind of similar to Grant, and I think going to office hours will be very helpful. And make sure you don't leave everything at the end of the semester. You'll be very heavy loaded, and make sure every topic you have any questions, make sure you ask right away, and then don't leave until like the end. And also sometimes professors are really nice. I think the class size is relatively smaller at UBCO, and that means like more opportunities for people to ask questions, and they can actually discuss everything like in detail in the course content. And so I have seen like one instructor actually can memorize all of the students' names, which is really impressive, and then having conversations with the students. And it's really nice in those learning environments.
Thanks, Ellie. I see some questions in the chat. How many hours of sleeps all of you guys, all of you generally get during first year? I think this also leads to the questions about what was your most challenging course and how did you overcome those? Any tips or advice? So I will pass it to Martin.
I think one of the most significant challenges in terms of courses was a coding class I took in my first year. So in high school, they did offer computer science, but I didn't necessarily have a strong foundation in coding. So I found it to be the content to be not very introductory friendly at first. But I think what really helped was attending office hours and trying to diagnose the concept that I didn't really understand. And on a lot of first year courses, they have this thing called Piazza where you can ask questions like anytime in case like you're stuck. And a lot of students do respond to those questions, so they can like help you debug your code or like explain a concept that was covered in class that maybe flew over your head. So I think that was like one of the ways that I made it a lot more manageable, especially with the forming connections and making sure to ask questions as soon as you're stuck, and not waiting until the last minute, of course, with every submission assignment.
Yeah, thanks, Martin, for sharing that. So next, we'll shift the conversation into specific engineering programs. UBC has various programs that you can pursue as a second year. If you're a post-secondary transfer student watching this right now, this might be something that you're thinking right now. So Ellie, how would you say your first year experience and UBC's foundation or first year course help you to decide to apply to, I wouldn't say apply, to choose the program that you want to pursue in the second year, because we have so many programs that you can choose?
Yeah, I would say UBC's first year has actually like prepared me with most of the foundational knowledge that I needed to learn and to build a point in my upper levels. I think like first year's course is really in general, and they actually got in touch with like every aspect in engineering. Like for example, we learned about electrical stuff, like magnetic fields, and also like CAD modeling using a software called SolidWorks, and then we created 3D modeling, and we actually 3D printed it. And then we also learned about sustainability designs. Like we have done a project on making a filtration system to filter water, and this filtered water could actually be reused in other applications. And yeah, we also learned about coding and other forces, like interactions, how they work together. And because of all of these foundational knowledge, it helped me to make decisions on like what area I was actually interested in most. And actually, by having a chance to talk to the professors will also help in making decisions, because they are really knowledgeable and they know what kinds of jobs are out there for each field, and they will help you to make decisions on like what job titles or job careers that I'm more interested in.
Thank you, Ellie. And I also got another questions about how does everyone find the balance between schoolwork and fun activities? Is there any tips for time management? Does anyone want to jump in?
I can share if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I realized I didn't answer the sleep question. I actually have a pretty good sleep schedule, so about like 7.5 to 8 hours. I think in terms of the social life, I think it kind of there's a period where it gets kind of tough to manage it between like October and November, because that's when like a lot of the midterms are, which are the main exams that you'll be taking other than final exams. But I think September is a really peak time to explore the most of your social life. And we also have reading break, which is also a great time in terms of doing a lot of social related things. Since you have like a long break from your classes, you can travel, and you can also have like a lot more interactions with people maybe outside of classes. And I think in terms of time management, it's definitely always like ideal to start a lot of things early and like seek help like often and very early on. Because if you don't, you end up falling a lot behind, and the stress can sometimes actually make you less productive because you're not really thinking about what necessarily would be best to satisfy the requirements for a certain assessment. So I would say that. And especially since you're taking 6 to 7 classes, it's really important to track where you're designating the most time on, and not wasting time as like with getting stuck on questions. Because I know from personal experience, sometimes I get stuck on things like for hours, and then I don't know when to stop. So I think that's also a huge component of time management, especially for engineering.
May I also jump in?
Sure.
Yeah, I did want to address the sleep question as well. I might be on the opposite end of Martin. In my first year, it was I got very little sleep, but I think that was more so due to my poor study habits. Being out of school for so long, I certainly was rusty at it. And, now in my third year, I've finally gotten, a better handle on it. So it's something that you certainly learn. But, I would say that don't diminish the value of getting good sleeps and doing things outside of school that are fun as well. I think a lot of us can get caught up in school and really just work and do the grind, and that's excellent that you have that work ethic, but you don't want to get burned out. I think that that's a really key part of advice for myself and to you. I think that it's just like a lot of people can get burned out doing engineering, and so it's you want this to turn into a career. You don't want this to be a sprint. So you're going to be picturing yourself doing this for years to come. So you want to actually develop a good exercise schedule, sleep schedule, and take care of yourself.
Thanks, Grant. I think that's a really good advice from both Martin and Grant. So everyone will gonna have their different own management tip, but of course it is really important to find those balance and make sure you enjoy your full experience in UBC. So we only have about 4 minutes left, so I'm gonna shift to questions related with co-op program. So I know many of you from here have joined the co-op program, and I want to know the process of joining the program. So Ellie, do you want to start first?
Yeah, I think the process was quite straightforward. So we just needed to join the co-op course on campus, and then went through a little bit tasks to get us prepared for the job search. And then I think there was a video that we have to submit to introduce ourselves and like our initiatives for joining co-op. And then after that, it's just houseworks we need to do, and then we start looking for jobs on. There's a website called PD Portal, and on the website we're able to see the job titles from the companies, and to see we could see the locations of the companies. And yeah, after that, I just submitted my resume, cover letter to the companies that I was really interested in, and afterwards it's just gonna be interviewing and getting the offer.
Yeah, so a lot of the similar things that Ellie said, just a few things I wanted to add on. So you do have to submit a resume as part of the co-op process before being accepted into the program. And usually you're either get like an acceptance or rejected letter, usually in early September. So that's when you know that you're in the co-op program. And for the video interview, you usually have to explain like why you're like a strong candidate for the co-op program, especially since you're competing with so many students that want to be in the program, especially like within your department. So having like even like previous work experience is really beneficial to that. And then once you're accepted into the co-op program, you go through a workshop where you undergo how to network, how to write a resume and cover letter, and you also get to hear from top employers. So we got to hear from top employers from Pepsi and a few health biotech related companies about what they look for in students when they apply to jobs, and what they should say in interviews and what not to say, of course. So that's also part of the general parts of the co-op process, just to add more insight into that.
Thank you. My next question is, how does co-op program help you finding and landing on your job? Do they provide any service or mentorship to help your job search? Jambi, do you want to answer that?
Sure. So I'm excited to start my first co-op job and moving out of the city, out of the province for the first time. And I think one of the things that I did was basically meeting with my co-op advisor every now and then. I know a lot of students don't do it. I think it's really important just to ask things, because this is probably your first time working in the industry. And I think it's really important to get that perspective. And just doing a couple mock interviews, going over my resume and just asking general questions. I think that was really important. And after the job offer, it's really important to read through the job offer letter and just like going through it with your co-op advisor. I think that was something that I did, and I recommend people doing that too. And also the co-op office does a lot of sessions for cover letters, improving those, sitting in group sessions. I think those are really important, just sitting with your peers and someone who's actually there to tell you what you're doing wrong or doing correctly. I think that's really important. Yeah, just some things that I recommend doing. Yeah.